Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into something fundamental to, well, pretty much everything you do. Online classes, prepping for that hospitality career, just your daily techs. Information and communication technology, ICT. We all know it enables amazing things, right? But there's this other side, a sort of essential dark side that often gets overlooked. It can be genuinely negative, even toxic sometimes. So, our mission today isn't just another screen time warning. No, we've looked at sources that give us a solid framework for spotting these negative effects, especially for students like you and, society overall. The sources lay out 8 distinct categories, critical ones, where we're going to define them, talk through them, really analyze each one.
That's right. Look, if you want to succeed professionally, especially in a field like hospitality management that's so focused on high-touch service, you absolutely need this critical lens for technology. So the way we'll structure this is we'll start with the personal stuff, the risks affecting you daily. Then we'll move out to the bigger picture, institutional risks, global risks, things you'll face in your career. We'll hit the keywords, talk through some real-life scenarios, and break down the impacts across these 8 areas: social, physical, wellness, cognitive, educational, technological governance, and finally, environmental.
Okay, let's get into it. Starting close to home then. The individual student experience using these tools day in, day out. Let's kick off with social and emotional well-being. The key words here are, well, they're immediately concerning. Things like isolation, cyberbullying, maybe lower empathy, and definitely negative body image issues. And the scenario, it's probably painfully familiar for some. Student losing hours scrolling social media, comparing their real life to these perfect filtered online versions. It leads to be feeling pretty bad about yourself, maybe pulling back from actual campus life.
hmm And what's really interesting, or just maybe worrying, is the why behind it. Digital communication, well, it just isn't built to develop deep empathy or those really strong interpersonal skills. The source material points out that relying too much on just digital interactions can actually reduce your emotional resilience. Now think about hospitality management. Your whole job revolves around interactions, right? Reading people, managing emotional situations. If your main interaction practice has been through a screen, you might seriously lack the skills for reading nonverbal cues or handling that emotional labor effectively. It could be kind of catastrophic for your career.
That makes a lot of sense, yeah. And once you see that emotional and social strain, that isolation, it's really no surprise it starts showing up physically too. Let's shift gears then to the physical impacts.
Okay, so here the keywords are things like eye strain, definitely poor posture, disrupted sleep, and just, more sedentary habits overall. Imagine a student maybe pushing to finish a big capstone project for their management degree. They're hunched over a laptop for like 10 hours straight. Suddenly they've got chronic neck pain, maybe blurry vision.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there, haven't we? Pushing through the fatigue. But the result, like the sources highlight, it's very real. You're looking at a higher risk of musculoskeletal problems. Chronic stuff like digital eye strain, it's a fact. Spending that much time looking at screens contributes directly to headaches, dry eyes, and it really messes with your sleep patterns. And that impacts your focus, your mood, everything.
And that leads us perfectly into the next domain: wellness and lifestyle. Because, if you're physically uncomfortable and emotionally drained, your general sense of well-being is obviously going to suffer.
Yeah.
The key words cropping up here are tech burnout, reduced mindfulness, just being less present, and generally poor work-life balance.
Yeah, right. And the scenario is basically juggling everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hybrid classes, maybe a part-time job, plus this constant pressure to be online, engaged on social media. It just leads to feeling exhausted and maybe kind of irritable all the time.
This one is so critical for this audience, for hospitality students. Your future job performance hinges on emotional labor, right? Being consistently upbeat, patient, finding solutions even when you're absolutely wiped. But that constant digital barrage, it leads straight to mental exhaustion. It just drains your motivation. That tech burnout isn't just about feeling tired. It actually eats away at the emotional reserves you need to be that excellent, energetic service pro when you finally step onto that hotel floor.
Okay, so we've touched on the body, the emotions. Let's link this now to actual academic performance by looking at the cognitive and developmental strain. What's ICT doing to how you actually think and learn?
The keywords for cognitive are pretty stark. Things like memory loss, maybe reduced creativity, even potentially delayed social skills development. And the scenario the sources give is interesting. It's students relying really heavily on tools like autocorrect, search engines, calculators, and this dependence actually weakens their fundamental writing, math, and problem-solving abilities.
Hang on, though. Isn't using Google or spell check just being efficient? Like using your resources smartly. Where do the sources say efficiency stops and cognitive decay starts?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's about overdependence. That's the danger zone the sources point to. When you constantly outsource thinking, your brain basically stops prioritizing, building, and maintaining those pathways for problem solving itself. This is where you see that idea of surface learning creeping in. You find the quick answer, you cram for the test, but you don't really synthesize the information. You can't apply it independently or creatively later. So the impact is pretty clear. Relying too much on digital crutches can genuinely hamper natural cognitive development. It hinders that autonomous critical thinking, which is absolutely vital for, say, innovation and management.
That's a really important point, and it moves us nicely out of the purely personal impacts and more into the formal risks, the things affecting the learning environment itself, the institutions. Let's talk educational impacts.
Okay, educational risks. Keywords here include distraction, that's a big one, plagiarism, that's surface learning we just mentioned, and just generally reduced engagement in the actual learning process. A common scenario. Students scrolling social media during a live lecture, or maybe even using AI tools to quickly generate parts of an assignment instead of thinking it through themselves.
Yeah, that feels like a direct hit on academic integrity. The overall impact is, well, lower quality work and a general decline in critical thinking skills across the board. The source material is pretty blunt about it. ICT definitely increases classroom distractions, which lowers the quality of learning for everyone, not just the distracted student. And it makes academic dishonesty easier, which, fundamentally devalues the degree you're working so hard for. Okay, now let's look at the systems themselves, the technology you rely on daily. Technological vulnerability. The keywords here get pretty serious. Hacking, malware, data loss, system downtime.
Yeah, and think about the impact on the institution. Imagine your college's registration system crashing during peak enrollment because of a cyber attack. Thousands of students suddenly can't get the classes they need, or projecting into your career, picture a hotel's entire reservation system being locked down by ransomware.
Wow. Yeah.
It's way more than just an inconvenience, right? It disrupts essential academic functions or business operations, and critically, it exposes huge amounts of sensitive student or guest data. The reality is, ICT systems are inherently vulnerable. Understanding that vulnerability is actually a key part of professional risk management, something you'll definitely need in your career.
Which flows right into the rules and ethics surrounding all this tech. The governance and legal impacts. We're talking data privacy, digital inequality, and this interesting term the sources use, regulatory lag. Regulatory lag. So that basically means tech moves faster than the rules.
Exactly. Laws and institutional policies just struggle to keep pace with how fast technology evolves and how it's used.
Okay, so a scenario might be a student using some cool images they found online for a class marketing project. They post it publicly, maybe on a class blog, without realizing those images weren't licensed for that use. They've unknowingly violated copyright law.
Precisely. The impact there is potential legal trouble for the student and maybe the institution. Plus, you get into all these tricky ethical questions about using digital content responsibly. Data protection, copyright, ensuring everyone has fair access to technology. These are all complex areas where the regulations often fall behind, creating these kinds of legal gray areas or even vacuums.
Right. So we've covered 7 domains now. We went from personal well-being with social, physical wellness, cognitive stuff, right through to these systemic risks like educational integrity, tech failures, legal issues. But there's one more, isn't there? The broadest impact, the one that goes way beyond our screens and affects the whole planet.
That's right. The final domain is environmental impacts. It's crucial to remember that all this tech, however digital it seems, has a very real physical footprint. And often it's, well, toxic. The keywords here are things like e-waste, massive energy consumption, pollution from manufacturing, and just irresponsible disposal of old devices.
Okay, so picture this. A big university decides to upgrade all the computers in its labs. Or maybe a hotel chain renovates and throws out all the old TVs and tech from hundreds of rooms. What happens to the old stuff? If it's not recycled properly using certified methods?
Then the impact is huge amounts of toxic electronic waste leaching into the environment. Plus, you have the massive carbon footprint from powering all the servers, the networks, manufacturing the devices in the first place.
Right.
It all adds up. The sources really hammer this home. Improper disposal of electronics is a direct contributor to the global e-waste crisis and causes serious environmental damage. For you as a consumer, it highlights the impact of always needing the newest gadget. For you as a future manager, it highlights the ethical responsibility of handling asset disposal correctly.
Wow. Okay, so let's just quickly recap this whole map we've drawn. We've defined 8 critical negative areas for ICT. We started really personal. Social isolation, tech burnout, physical aches and pains, even impacts on how we think the cognitive side. Then we moved outwards. Threats to education, cybersecurity risks, legal tangles, and finally, this huge environmental cost. It's quite a list.
It is. And understanding this whole framework, it's absolutely vital. Look, this isn't about saying technology is bad and we should avoid it. That's impossible and not even desirable. It's about practicing awareness, critical management, especially for you, heading into hospitality management, a field where communication, solving problems in real time, and that emotional resilience are absolutely paramount. Knowing these 8 domains helps you avoid becoming sort of a victim of digital dependency, both while you're studying now and later when you're managing critical operations and guest experiences in your career.
So we have to leave you with a final thought to chew on, and it connects directly back to that cognitive domain and the demands of your future job.
Right? Think about this. If we become so reliant on digital tools, search engines for every answer, autocorrect for every word, that our own independent problem-solving skills and even our memory start to weaken, what happens? What happens when you're in that hotel lobby facing a really high-pressure situation, a service failure, an angry guest who needs an immediate creative solution right now, and there's absolutely no time to pull out your phone, no time to search for the right answer?
What then? Think about that balance, that essential balance between leveraging digital efficiency and maintaining your own eponymous human capability to think, adapt, and connect.